Okay, so with us today is Bob Stewart, professional geologist, who is going to present on mining equals opportunity for communities in Nunavut. Robert, take it away.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. And so we're going to have lots of opportunity for breaks throughout this presentation that's about 80 slides long. And we first have to, of course, start with the acknowledgements that Nunavut is the ancestral homeland of many peoples and communities that have had adaptive relationships with the land and society. I've tuned this specifically for economic development officers from lots of very good sources of information from Indigenous, federal government, territorial government, industry, and subject matter experts. So one of the things that's impressed me from doing the research is just how much opportunity there is, and both geologically and in the modern treaties and the regulatory system that's falls out from that. The spirit of IQ, the Inuit philosophy that we're in this all together within a global environment is important to remember. So the thanks to Cando and Natural Resources Canada for all this, and let's see why. So Nunavut's geography is 40,000 people, known as the Nunavummiut. 84% of the population is Inuit, living in about 25 centers. It's the fifth largest administrative area in the world, and given the population density, it's the most sparsely populated region in the world, apart from Antarctica and the open oceans. So I got started on the research in January for this presentation, and the January 18th announcement of devolution by 2027 came out, and that's great because it's going to transfer even more opportunity to the people of Nunavut. And the ability to make decisions about lands administration, development, and resource management is a quote from that announcement. Also, opportunities to continue strengthening the peoples of Nunavut, and that Northern-led investments in land and resource development, creating more jobs and increasing prosperity across the territory to come, are all the basic theme of this presentation. So our goal today is to gain awareness of Nunavut's mineral industry and Indigenous opportunities. And this basically breaks down into two major parts, looking at the economic overview and the life cycle of mining, with a few key points for economic development officers. As Paul mentioned, there will be not only this presentation uploaded to the web, the Cando website, but there will also be some appendices where the references that you see are references to information on these slides will be provided. And in Appendix B, the additional resource material, will be links to topics that are covered here today. So my role today in the economic overview is recognizing the basis for Indigenous opportunities and community control through the mining cycle. And then in the second part, we'll be looking at the full life cycle of mining, trying to put it into a everyday language and drawing out the opportunities for partnership. And so under the economic overview, I've broken it down into three main parts, and we'll see each of these here shortly. So under participation and opportunity, I wanted to first go over how we got here, both geologically and the early indigenous mining that has occurred, as then move on into what today's regulatory framework in Nunavut is, and how devolution offers even more. So being a geologist for the last 50 years, I've been learning all the time about from the science of how Earth formed 4.5 million years ago, and that Earth is particularly special in the solar system and the universe because we basically have two metal cores, one from the moon when it hit us, plus the original one we had, and that metal core, or those two metal cores combined. So we have a greater geological endowment. But gravity moved those metals to the core, and it took a number of geological processes and special events to move those metals back up to the surface. And the first major metal event occurred 2,700,000,000 years ago, over an event that took place over about 40 million years. And this is when the first oceans were able to form, and we had hydrothermal deposits that deposited a lot of the heavy metals from the core to surface. And then a little while later, over a period of 400 million years, there was the Great Oxygenation Event and Huronian glaciations, where Earth was almost completely covered in ice. And the early life started to form that gave us oxygen to our atmosphere. Relevant to Nunavut is mantle plumes and flood basalt events. And these occurred around the Coppermine River, the Coppermine basalts, up in Victoria Island, a later event of flood basalts occurred. Then several other flood basalt events. I worked in West Greenland on the West Greenland Baffin flood basalts that are being explored heavily again. And the reason they're being heavily explored is because the very rich nickel, copper, cobalt, PGE deposits are typically hidden in these formations. And so using the information that we have from other parts of the world, we're able to see just why, or see the evidence that there's going to be those deposits ready to be found. These deposits also produced native copper and native iron. And when the first indigenous peoples to run across these use these metals, they were able to pound on them and make them into useful tools. The next geological events were where the somewhat similar to mantle plumes, where metals were able to come out of waters from intrusions, and they mineralized these metal-laden waters were able to deposit the metals in carbonate deposits. And we have three major mines that were in the north, one in Black Angel, the Black Angel mine, and Nanisivik and Polaris. So geologists or geoscientists, we're trained specialists that are required to seek, assess, and mine the minerals alongside of engineers. The earliest indigenous mining in Nunavut goes back 5,000 to 4,000 years ago, when the Tunit peoples spread from Alaska to Greenland after crossing the Bering Sea on ice from northern Siberia. People have been coming over for 25,000 years ago, but they mainly took a more southern route until 5,000 years ago, because the ice cap was extending to the Arctic Ocean. The Tunit hunted using bows and arrows and lived in portable tents and were very mobile. And back in Siberia, they had developed the skill of making warm tailored garments sewn from northern animals. And so they were highly adaptable and also creative. There's ivory carvings and stone tools that were made using knapped stone tools. They made dwellings and using the available local stone. And on the right-hand side here, we see the oldest facial carving artifact known in North America from sometime about almost 4,000 years ago, that was created in the north by the Tunit. Here, the slide behind, the picture behind is our kulik, the soapstone oil lamps that are related to the Dorset peoples that followed about 2,500 years ago. They spread from spread along the coast from Alaska, and Dorset advantages were that they were able to hunt sea mammals, and they had more weatherproof dug-in shelters with hide roofs. The is also evidence that they were not only picking up the native copper and iron when they could run across it, but they traded in it. And there's certainly these peoples in Greenland. There are several areas over there where the meteoritic iron and iron related to the flood basalts can be easily gathered in those special locales. 1,500 years ago, the Dorset peoples spread away from the coast and built longhouses and enclosures using stone. But they remained isolated from the forested peoples of the forest, the Innu and Dene, and as well as the Thule Inuit peoples west of the Mackenzie River, until the climate began to warm 1,000 years ago. And the Dorset people artifacts vanished between 1,200 and 1,500 AD, after 2,000 years. And we then see that in this warming climate that the early Inuit peoples spread east along the coast from Alaska to Greenland. And they were able to spread quickly using dog sleds, umiaks, and kayaks. The weather changed again 100 years later, and we had the Little Ice Age. And the early Inuit made use of iron and copper. The copper Inuit gleaned pure copper from the shores and rivers of the Coronation Gulf and Victoria Island. And copper was enough to trade with the neighbors. And so we see copper from the copper mine area much further south into the prairies. Unlike the peoples around Lake Superior, who were actually underground mining 9,500 years ago to follow the copper veins underground. There's no evidence so far of mining of copper from the flood basalts in Nunavut. So when we look at the history here of Nunavut's mining, we see that they had 13 actual mines, and what you call a mine is different among different peoples. But this is basically mine. These are actually mines that I think pretty much everybody would agree with. And you can see the furthest one north, Polaris and Nanisivik, the lead zinc mines, the currently operating Mary River mine in northern Baffin Island. The item there for Iqaluit is for a stone quarry just outside of Iqaluit for use. And then we get over into the gold and the gold mines in western Nunavut. And Jericho is a diamond mine. So where we look at the main mines, Nunavut is divided into three different regional Inuit associations, or three areas. And the oldest mine is only opened in 1957 and operated for a short time at the North Rankin nickel mine. It had as much indigenous. It was the first mine in Canada that actively recruited Indigenous people to work in the mine, and started a long history of that participation. And there was mines have opened and closed because of economic factors and resource, the economics of the resource at the time. So we now have three currently producing mines. The significant ones are in on Baffin Island at Mary River, the Amaruq and Meladine Agnico in the Kivalliq Regional Inuit Association district. And then we've got some other ones, including a pre-producing mine, the Goose Project by B2 Gold in the Back River Greenstone Belt has been mining gold ore and stockpiling it now for processing once the mill becomes operational in 2025. They've B2 Gold and others have already sunk $900 million into this project before they see the first cent of revenue or return. So for billion-dollar investments in harsh Arctic terrain, let's take a look to see what's there besides the great geology, and that's its regulatory framework. And so the regulatory framework can be broken down into these subdivisions, and we'll drill down into them. So Nunavut has a solid foundation for mineral investment, and financing being the very first thing that can happen. It's, you know, you can have all the good geology, but you need somebody to come and take a look at it. And so the Nunavut Planning Commission has put together some clear land use plans. The mineral opportunity has been demonstrated well by the people at Nunavut Geoscience. that have been associated with the long history of the Geological Survey of Canada working in the north. The DIG or DIG program is a prospectors assistance program that has been developed in recent years in Nunavut. And that's about a $1.5 million program that can provide some seed money assistance to small companies and prospectors. So the mining regulations are laid out, and there is a mining recorder that will soon transition by 2027 to Akalo. The regulator expectations and a company to help you with that is NTI, the Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, and that it's nice to have an non-governmental group there to help with the governmental regulations. The Nunavut Impact Review Board checks things out and before project proposals out before passing it along to the regional Inuit associations for their approval. And we all know that in the mineral industry, we know that capital is liquid annually. Rarely do you have a commitment for more than a year. And it's similar in government is that you have annual budgets that are not committed. And so that again, the spirit, a project spirit involving IQ, and IQ is able to accept new information to it's not static. So in the past 40 years, forward-looking agreements between communities and mining industry proponents have become the norm, and project proponents also prefer working with community businesses. So the opportunity for EDOs is to try to know their businesses' capabilities and try to pair them up, network with the companies that might be coming in, and so that in some of the early Native or Indigenous government to company memoranda of understanding, there's set aside contracts for procurement of goods and services. So the federal government website here lists agreements, Indigenous mining agreements, up until about 2020. It seems to be how current they are. Of course, we had COVID starting in 2020, and so that there are some agreements that continue to be in progress and have been made recently that don't show here. And so that the examples of community signatories are the Inuit associations, the regional Inuit associations, and some of the corporations that are Indigenous or Inuit businesses that have started up to service the local mineral industry. So active partners on these agreements are listed there, and Agnico Eagle being the main mining company in the region is got the most agreements. Atha Energy is a brand new they're on the list because of their takeover of prior operators, exploration operators. So, and of course, B2 Gold and Baffinland are the we've already mentioned their mining activities in the area. So when we look at title, title is important because that's what people hold on to. The mining companies hold on to that. The mineral tenure laws and the regulatory system are rapidly evolving into a fully Nunavut controlled system. And in the past, physical mineral claim staking was the traditional method used, where claim posts or stored cairns with tags and documents were erected and recorded. This system is costly, inefficient, environmentally unfriendly, and it created a false sense of ownership rights for claim holders that doesn't have good roots. And that system is still in place in Nunavut and Yukon, but they're working towards going to map staking systems that were introduced in the southern provinces starting about 40 years ago. And these map staking systems can take a full decade, like in Ontario. It was a decade before from starting to put the system in place until it was actually put in place here just a little over a decade ago. So community consultations really only became typical about 40 years ago. And we call that a proponent's social license. And that has become very important for working anywheres in Canada. When we look at the modern treaties, Nunavut involved land ownership. About 18% of the surface of Nunavut is Indian-owned or Inuit-owned land, and additional 2% is surface and subsurface rights. So a total of 20% that is of Inuit-owned surface rights in the territory. And the mineral rights, the subsurface rights, are held in trust by NTI. And the opportunity here is that how those subsurface rights get used and shared with exploration companies can be done through formal agreements like option agreements and joint ventures. So in the past 40, 50 years across Canada, mineral tenure changed to map staking, which has the many benefits. This has been done since 2021 by CERNAC, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada, Mining Recorder's Office. And you can see go online and see what the mineral tenure status is in any particular location, and be able to zoom right in. So while it's easier to stake online, that you don't actually have to go there and put up posts in the field, there is a commitment that you're making when you stake a claim. And so the average claim holder expenditures are expected to be about $40,000 per year per claim. A claim is, when we're talking a claim here, we're talking a 15 to 25 square kilometer area. The average claim size in Nunavut is about 17.5 square kilometers. So out of that $40,000, half goes to the government, half to the geoscientific fieldwork. The first years of tenure have lower hurdles, but by the time you get to the end, it's more. So that's where the 40,000 figure comes from. So you, in order for you to do that field work, that geoscientific field work, you have to get the permits through several regulators. And that's normally the job for a mineral exploration program of a geoscientist. And that geoscientist has to be registered with NAPIG, the Northwest Territories and Nunavut Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists. The next regulator, you'll put it into the Nunavut Planning Commission, who will see that the proposals align with the land use plan. And you're expected to have already looked at the land use plan before you put your proposal in. And we see that the Nunavut Planning Commission has been operating for almost 10 years now. And they get about 25 proposals a year. 80% of them are mining related. They can then pass it along to the Nunavut Impact Review Board, which is where the well-being of the environment and the people are being looked at. And NIRB have looked at over the last almost 30 years have looked at over 2,200 projects, and about half of them are mineral development related. Now, a lot of those are renewals of previously issued permits. Land use permits are required from the regional Inuit associations, and water use goes through the Nunavut Water Board. The request it has to be made, but early stage projects may only require an authorization. And something that's unusual to people in southern Canada is that a scientific research license through the Nunavut Research Institute can be required as well. And so project professionals want capable local contractors, and they can find some of these. For instance, the Kitikmeot Corporation has links to local contractors. The Northwest Territories and Nunavut Chamber of Mines have member lists that you can look at, and Baffinland has a preferred Inuit firm process that they use to help their decision making. When we look at sustainable field work, the NTI has helped out in developing general mining policies, a uranium policy, a reclamation policy, and other resources that are applicable to mining and exploration projects. And you can go to NTI for copies of those. Because of the remoteness, rotational work is on a fly-in, fly-out basis, and all of the issues related to having camps and access are required through the water board and the regional Inuit associations. So since early stage projects are seasonal, the permitting needs to begin a long time in advance. And as we see more exploration activity increasing in Nunavut because of its tremendous potential, those lead times are probably going to be longer. So the first year-round activity and that requires annual re-permitting would be advanced exploration, where resources are being drilled off. And of course, once the project is proven successful and passed through all the mining permitting stages, and commercial operations are able to operate, the compliance inspections and permitting are going to be ongoing. So the reclamation is something that is ongoing, and even a reclamation program requires permits. So as project professionals, we have to provide timely reports to the people that we report to, including the company's officers, shareholders, and stakeholders. And stakeholders include the communities closest to the project. We have to make sure that we're in regular communication back and forth with the license and permit regulators, which is normally a condition of those licenses and permits. And if irregular events happen, the environmental regulators need to be called in, and we have to maintain our title with the mineral title regulators, and in order to move projects forward, we quite often have to file technical reports with the security regulators. And then the year comes to an end, and you have to do it all again. So it's is very much a revolving door. So for community participation and opportunity, what we need, we're seeing that there's now going to be territorial control of the resources, and that will require informed choices by the territorial government, the regulators that will be in Nunavut, as well as every project opponent. And so the people of Nunavut need to be participating in all of these aspects. And I really like to see what Baffinland has been doing by sharing staffing positions specifically for the IQ. And there are other capacity building government programs that I see are out there, and all of this regulatory and capacity building should create prosperity. So, any questions so far?
There are no questions posted in the chat, Robert. If anybody has a question, please just turn on your microphone and take a few moments to ask Robert.
Okay, hearing none.
Hearing none. Carry on then. If you don't mind, Robert.
Yeah.
So there were a few people that came in after the administrative explainer. So I'll just take a moment to do that. So
okay.
This recording, this session is being recorded, and this recording will be shared later today on Cando's website, edo.ca. Robert's PowerPoint presentation will also be shared later today. Robert also has compiled a comprehensive list of resources, links, tools, and so on that we'll be sharing via the Cando website in the coming weeks. I do have a list of everyone that's registered for this session and your emails. So what I'll do is, when it's available and posted on the Cando website, I will send out an email to everyone registered to remind them of where they can find all the resources, including the recording and the PowerPoint. So don't worry about missing anything today or having to jot anything down, you'll have access to all of this information as an ongoing legacy resource later today and in the coming few weeks. So thank you for that. Robert, go ahead.
Okay, and so that looking at how important mining is for Canada, we have all of these points that it forms the basis of our economy. And when we look at the primary resource sector in Canada, it amounts to about 13% or $247 billion. And so in that graphic that we see here, we've got the down at the bottom of the economic pyramid, we have the primary resource sector where mining represents 15% of it. The largest proportion is 48% coming from fossil fuels. And of course, that's something that the fossil fuel component of the economy is something that we have a desire to phase out. And the solution largely comes down to the critical minerals in mining. And so we'll take a look at some other numbers that 9% of the mining industry workforce is Indigenous, which is the highest level of Indigenous participation in any of the industrial sectors. And 13% of the mining workforce is are now women. When in the past there were very few women involved. Nunavut currently employs about 4,000 people. It fluctuates highly with seasonal work, and today's mining is safer, better paid, and better regulated than 30 years ago, which is something I have personally experienced, and that we think differently now as on leading projects, and so that there's been a big change there. So where to find out about recent mining activities in Nunavut? The good start is some of the excellent material produced by Nunavut Geoscience, including their annual overview report and its map. And these are all available easily online, and they are just full of information to find out. And of course, we want to see more community discussions about mining, and just really, there's people out there that can be very powerful in stopping mining for their own personal viewpoints, whereas we really need the support of the broad community for mining project approvals. And to get your information, Nunavut Geoscience out of their Iqaluit office can give you help. You can go to the companies directly or to the Northwest Territories and Nunavut Chamber of Mines. The regulators post lots of information that allows you to understand what's happening. And don't be afraid to talk to your politicians so that it's on their radar that the mining sector is important. And so that all these folks do that through various social media, the local news outlets, and there's 2 or 3 major mining events a year. Coming up next month in Iqaluit is the Nunavut Mining Symposium, and we've just had the PDAC in Toronto, and the roundup that's held every January in Vancouver is a place where the world gathers to find out what's happening. So some of the current news to follow that will be huge for mining in Nunavut, as well as the prosperity of every Nunavut citizen, is the Grays Bay Road and Port project. It's had various proponents over the years. Most recently, the West Kitamini Resources is now heading it up, and this is something that needs public support. Atha Energy has recently come onto the scene in the Thelon Basin, and NTI has a uranium policy available that covers the how that particular element is handled or is considered by the territory. And really exciting news is the review board is got a just posted that they have a person that's looking into moving the De Beers Canada diamond project along, and that would have fantastic input or impact by being a drive-in, drive-out from Iqaluit opportunity. And with 74 kimberlites identified to date, 120 kilometers from Iqaluit, you're looking at a long time of industry development. So, any questions? Hearing none, I'll forge ahead. So, taking a look at economic and environmental benefits, 44% of Nunavut's GDP comes from mining, and mining is 95% of Nunavut's industrial production over the past 4 years. So the importance of mining on an annual basis, it's increased to 40% in the last 2 years. And with all these projects that are waiting in the wings, awaiting permit reviews, we're going to see not just maintaining, but increasing the impact on the GDP. This map here, the pink areas are showing where there's mineral tenure. As I pointed out earlier, there's 2% of the subsurface rights are held under are owned by Inuit under the land claims agreement, and less than that is held by the companies. 1.88% of Nunavut is currently held under claims and leases. The 2022 mineral production value was $2.4 billion. A negligible amount came from pits and quarries that are local to communities. So it really came from the 2 gold mines operated by Agnico Eagle and the iron mine operated by Baffinland. The mineral investment doesn't just go into building the mines. It also goes into the exploration and deposit appraisal. And in 2022, there was over $230 million invested. And last year, there were 59 exploration projects by 26 operators. So that's going to not only replenish anything that is developed, it's going to lead to new projects. So how do we understand some of the mining terminology? And I've I've put together some comparisons to try to make allow you to understand what just how much some of these things and what their economic impact. So the CN Tower is 553 meters tall, and the Rogers Center is has a its ceiling is 86 meters above field level and is 1.6 million cubic meters. And a high grade mine, uh, a high grade precious metal or gold mine is 6 grams per ton. A diamond mine is 1.5 carats per ton. And so what does this grams per ton is the same as parts per million. And so a hockey puck sitting on a NHL rink is 3 parts per million. All the rest of it, all the rest of that ice surface doesn't pay. The a 1 ppm is on a hockey rink is the equivalent of 6 Canadian dimes, and a 1 carat per ton is the equivalent to a penny on a hockey rink. So I use some of these comparisons in here. Under finance, we see the some of the numbers. Aggregate is negligible, and the amount mined is for aggregate is about probably the size of an indoor hockey rink building. The under industrial minerals, also nil production, and elsewhere it typically has almost no, or has only 2% waste. The next category of iron, base metals, uranium, the revenue for Baffinland was 643 million, but in 2022, but they posted a $136 million loss. So just because you're mining doesn't mean you're making money. And they produced 6 million tons of direct shipping ore, and so they shipped it all away. Essentially, there was no waste. The diamonds and precious metals, we're getting up to where the money is made in Nunavut from the operating gold mines, and 66% of the exploration dollars are spent looking for more diamonds and gold, mainly gold, and the 74% of the territory's revenue comes from gold production, and 7.4 million tons of ore were processed. But out of that 7.4 million tons, it equates to only that 7.4 million tons equates to 1.5 Rogers centers, and the amount of gold is only 1.2 cubic meters. So to understand the value of the highest value ore, the Jericho diamond mine that is closed down in the western Nunavut. Raw diamonds coming from there or coming from future diamond mines would have a value of about $500,000 a kilogram. And a kilogram of diamonds is about the size of a softball. The next thing is when we take a look at what a kilogram size of gold is, it's about 2/3 of a hockey puck. And so a full hockey puck of gold would be worth about $100,000. And so the reason why the precious metal mines and diamonds are so important is they have a high unit value. You can get the finished product out in a suitcase. The base metals, they require more infrastructure. And iron ore, because of it's only worth about 10 cents a kilogram, it needs more infrastructure. And so that when we look at the size of how much was actually mined, that 6 million tons coming out of Baffinland would fill a Rogers Center. There was more rock came out of the ground for the gold mines. And the total amount of gold produced in Nunavut in 2022 from the two mines would be the size of 3 washing machines. And that, you know, that means that you've got basically a washer and dryer worth of gold that's derived from a Rogers Center size space. So why is mining an opportunity? The minerals are shared by the public under clear agreements. And the people of Nunavut by 2027 will share even more of that mineral wealth. So the faster mines can get into production, the more value it will be for the people of Nunavut. So this can be achieved through the clear regulatory regime. And it's the importance of mining now and in the past 2 years is that, you know, it is providing 44% of the territory's gross domestic product. And the future is that we're not looking at the end of mine lives, we're looking at the start. And this is going to generate more opportunities for future generations. So we're now at another break, Paul.
Thanks, Robert. Again, if you have any questions, you can turn on your microphone now and ask Robert.
Hi there,
Connor.
Yes. So just
Go ahead,
a quick
please.
introduction. So Connor Morris, I'm a senior advisor within the land and minerals sector, in particular in the strategic policy division. I had a few questions, so I didn't really know what time to come in on it, but I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, given all of the information that you've shared about the impact of the mining industry in Nunavut. What are the kind of major barriers that you see Indigenous communities or things that are stopping that community or social buy-in for major projects? I know that it's a difficult question to answer. I'm sure there's a multitude of factors, including historical projects and so forth. But anyways, I don't want to answer the question for you, so feel free.
Yeah, and so perhaps I can get back to that at the end.
Okay, perfect.
And because as you see here in part 2, we're going to be looking at the key turning points, and this is where community involvement is particularly important, where we build that relationship of the project proponent working with the community to make sure that everyone's expectations are able to be considered. And so yeah, that I think that is we can take a look at it at the end or discuss it more. All right, Paul.
Thanks.
Thanks, Connor. So
Barty posted a question on chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So how can service providers support and contribute or be a part of increasing profitability and productivity at these mines? I understand that this is a broad question, However, a few brainstorm ideas would be appreciated. I think that's something that we should hold off until the end as well, Robert.
Okay.
So Barty, if you don't mind waiting until Robert finishes his presentation, and then we'll open that up and have a discussion on that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect. I had a problem with my mute button. Sorry about that. But yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you again. So in part two, we're going to take a look at the full cycle of mining, and that may help answer some of the questions. So we look at basically a 10-step breakdown of the full mining cycle, and where there are 7 key points. So the key turning points. And what I mean by a turning point, this is where things can move forward or completely stop. And so that so we take a look at this, and people start to look. They're doing their research, and they come up with their own intellectual property, and that's and so that when we work into this, we have to recognize that confidentiality is still the only protection for intellectual property. And Charlie Angus, in his book on Cobalt, the Cradle of Demon Metals, Birth of a Mining Superpower, related the story of an Ojibwe person sharing their traditional knowledge of the silver veins on Silver Islet with newcomers, and those newcomers staked the use the laws to stake the what became the Silver Islet mine without any consideration of the Ojibwe. And so that's clearly not fair, and that's not the type of environment that we expect today. And it goes and so that getting together and talking with the First Nations to express your interest in an area is important. And we need the nation-to-nation consultation, which is approaching finalization to be done, and then we can get on with the community. Or simultaneously, we have the community company consultations, and so that it's not just consultations is not just a box to check. They do have to be meaningful consultations. And from reading through the documents, I believe that Nunavut has a clear commitment to mineral development opportunity with expectations. And so that the Mining Recorder's Office records the administers claims, and that the amount of claims that they administer is actually less than the subsurface rights that NTI administers. And the mineral tenure acquisition is a key turning point. The proponent decides that this can move forward, and so that they commit resources, finances to actually do that. And so that when we look at how many recorded and lease claims there are, and that there were 3 mines, there's about 1,000 claims per mine in Nunavut now. And so that we've seen much higher regulatory requirements, and we've adapted as professionals. We've upped our game, and we now have are required to be registered with a self-regulating organization. And for engineers and geoscientists in Nunavut, it's NAPEG. And what that means is that there's somebody that is identified on projects that is a professional engineer or geoscientist, and that they can be held accountable. You can make a complaint to NAPEG if you feel that you've been wronged. And so that the duty of professionals and engineers is to, their paramount duty is to uphold the well-being of the public and the environment. So this is something that there are now people identified that a project might fail, but the engineers and geoscientists' responsibility can endure. And so that professional practice guidelines for Indigenous consultation and technical work are provided by government and industry affiliated organizations. And we're going to see in Appendix B, those are all going to be available links in an extensive Excel format. So when we look at the pre-exploration and project generation stage, the proponent has to have the mineral claims in place, the intellectual property of how they're going to have a reasonable exploration plan, and a clear understanding of all the other project risks and how they're going to be mitigated, so that they can get the project financed or worked on by others. And so that for the Indigenous owned lands that include mineral title, the optioning and joint venturing is an opportunity for those lands that doesn't have to go through the mineral staking or mineral title process, because you already own the subsurface rights. So prospectors and junior companies can self-finance their way, but up in the territories, the cost of that, you're basically only looking at junior and senior companies coming in. Junior companies come in to because of the high geological potential, and prove something up to the point where they hope that a senior company will come in to carry on the operations. But nothing happens at the production stage until something gets started and found. So a project's third key turning point is that initial financing. And to make sure that people aren't overinflating their project, the 43-101 technical report that is done by an independent professional may be required. So early exploration work requires an exploration action plan to obtain the field work permits from various agencies in the Nunavut government. And the goal of early exploration is to get the positive indications that there is a mineral deposit to be found here. And the beauty of Nunavut is that it's probably just sticking out of the ground and just needs to be sampled. And so that going around and banging on rocks and taking samples, though the environmental impacts are expected to be minimal, and using qualified geologists to recognize the potential in the field is good bang for the buck. But we live in a world where we are surrounded by a constellation of satellites. And just a month ago, NASA launched uh, a particularly relevant satellite for mineral exploration and prospecting because it is in a polar orbit. So it's going to be looking at be able to look at Nunavut. And it's using its hyperspectral capability to look at very large scales. And we have, having worked in the hyperspectral industry, remote sensing industry for 6 years, I know that we can take a look at those 100-kilometer spatial resolution pixels and see things in them that actually are a fraction of that size. So I think that we can see things coming where that intellectual property of people being able to look at this new data and then come to Nunavut to talk to people that they're going to be talking about areas that have probably never ever been looked at, and they need to get in on the ground to see if what they think might be there is actually there. The other advantage of these satellite constellations is that they provide archival material for looking at how mine sites and exploration sites have progressed and how they're complying to the permits. So the next stage in a program is often the airborne geophysical surveys, and one of them, one type like the satellite that we were just talking about, are passive systems that they might be have hyperspectral or magnetic or gravity, and that's just reading things that are coming up off the ground. There's no energy being put down into the ground. And so LiDAR surveys that give us very accurate measures of the surface topography and that are extremely useful in planning, as well as electromagnetic surveys. These are actually beaming electromagnetism into the earth and recording the response. Those surveys can help identify places to go and send prospectors and geologists and do other follow-up surveys, including ground geophysical surveys for instance, targets that were identified under lakes. You can go in with the geophysical, do ground geophysical surveys in April and May when the ice is still on the lakes, and determine the best place or define what the characteristics of the hidden minerals are. The Northwest Territories and Nunavut, or the Nunavut, soil sampling is not as common, but I have worked on Arctic projects where it's all rock and had some success with sampling the minimal soil that's on the rocks. So science-based targets are prioritized, and so geophysicists and geologists and geochemists get together to identify what looks like it could actually be related to a sizable deposit, but you have to go in and use some sort of a drill to find that. Australians like reverse circulation, but reverse circulation drills can can have their difficulties, and what seem to have more success here are diamond drills and putting the rock in, coring the rock and putting in boxes where a geologist can take a look at it. And for a limited amount of time, the hole can be open for geophysicists to put probes down. So what we call a maiden drill hole discovery is one that encounters ore grade mineralization over mineable widths. And this really gets the excitement in a project going. And you move a project along hoping that it merits consideration for development. And that is a project's fourth key turning point. Nunavut is one of the last places globally where exploration potential is truly still at the very early days or frontier stage. This is, the potential here is enormous. So advanced exploration is stage 4 of a project, and this is where it kind of gets down to being routine, and so lots of engineering starts to come in here, and the environmental baselines studies continue. These types of programs can progress very quickly because you put multiple drills in on a target because there's a very limited summertime window, and you are hoping to get it to the next stage quickly. And that next stage is when project decisions can be made, and it ends the exploration cycle and starts the development cycle. And so as we get to that mine lease stage, and there's the permitting for each of these programs can require community consultation. And so as part of the impact review board will require a company to make sure that they've satisfied the environmental and community concerns. And so that production is the only time when money is generated from a mining project. And so that and producing mining operations may not be profitable. So when they aren't profitable for a certain amount of time, a closure decision by the company is made. That doesn't mean that the closure of the project has to happen. Some of the alternatives is that a mine is put on care and maintenance. For instance, Agnico Eagle looked at the Doris Gold mine and has decided to focus their attention on their other producing mines and just keep Doris idling there until they can address some of the concerns they have there. And so mine closure plans were actually developed and approved back in stage 6. And companies, communities, and government can refine the closure plan to accommodate change, including cooperating to avoid closure. And so that could be getting somebody else in to see if they can have a go at the mine, and that happens more often than that's a fairly common thing to happen. But if the mine does close, it has to be returned to the conditions that were laid out in the earlier permits. And so that in Nunavut, some operators have gone out of business. And right now, the federal government has become responsible for reclamation. And the Jericho diamond mine is one of those examples. But here we see in this picture of the Jericho mine that there's all this blue rock sitting at surface. And that's the kimberlite that came out of the open pit. They mined the open pit as fast as they could, because of course you would have seasonal precipitation that would end up filling the pit. And so they have all this diamond material on surface that they couldn't get through the mill. Another company came in and tried to put the stockpiles through the mill, and had to give up before they had processed very much of it. So this is potential diamond ore sitting at surface, and as part of the Grays Bay Road and Port project, they want to use some of the infrastructure here at Jericho. So even though a mining project, some of those buildings could be used to help the truckers using that road to stay overnight and be a safety haven. So this is where the closure plan that was drawn up 20 years ago needs to be modified to address the community's current concerns. So the repurposing of the land is the seventh key turning point, because some of these things they shouldn't be left as an eyesore and a hazard, but they do need to be addressed with the maximum or sustainability. So we have another interactive check here and probably another 5 minutes of presentation afterwards. So shall I just barge forward here, Paul?
Yes, please do, Robert.
So we've just looked at the life cycle and center to the 5 parts of the or the 10 parts of the life cycle of metal mining is the Indigenous business opportunities. And it can be everything from jobs working for the proponent or jobs working for the contractors. And so there's over 160 different types of mining jobs spanning all of the different levels of the operation. So economic development offers can recognize opportunity through greater awareness of just what's happening in the Nunavut mineral industry, what the community's capacity and resources are, participating in the consultations that will be coming through, as well as in community discussions that can happen at any time. From time to time, community consent is required and formalized in agreements. And so that it's a big business, and you know, just knowing what's closest and looking at those maps that come out annually to see what new activity is happening locally, and because aggregate is something, or communities need aggregate, and that's something that a local community can, with minimal equipment, can develop the aggregate potential there. However, there still is the permitting required for what the land use is, and if it's in Inuit-owned land, it will be easier to develop the aggregate potential than if it's at the resources outside of Inuit-owned land. So by knowing what the mineral project's stage is and recognizing the key turning points that it's going to have and anticipating what those needs are, that can formulate part of the discussion. So industry professionals are willing to fully engage with the Indigenous partners business in exploring and developing mineral opportunities. From the even higher level, we have some direction about critical minerals from a Canadian perspective, and that we see here on this map that some areas identified where critical minerals are in the in Nunavut, zinc and copper in the western part, and nickel, copper, cobalt, platinum potential around Baker Lake. So there's we already have these 3 operating mines. We have 3 advanced projects, and the other numerous exploration projects, up to 50 projects that are looking at critical minerals. So we need these minerals to replace the hydrocarbon component of our economy, not only for the energy value, but the the environmental value. And so that the federal government is committed to these UN DRIP implementation and the further reconciliation efforts. And the mining industry is wants to share in that as well. So there was a program, federal program, that closed a year ago, and keep an eye out for the next round of government programs that can help increase the capacity of Indigenous communities and increase the investment and or collaboration between Indigenous peoples and other natural resource development stakeholders. So making capitalizing on the use of Indigenous owned lands. So here's our final break. And Connor and Barty, you're still here?
Yep. Yeah, I think you're going through those key turning points kind of clearly answered my question. So I appreciate that and appreciate the all the presentation. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Connor. Barty, did you want to ask your question again directly, or? Oh, I see that she's left the conversation.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else want to turn on their microphone and ask Robert any clarifying questions or follow-up questions?
Okay then.
All right.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
if you don't mind, I might
go ahead,
might come in and just bug you for one more question. You just kind of hinted at a few times or pressed the idea that in Nunavut, it's still somewhat in its infancy in terms of how far it can go, the mining industry. Is that in particular to just the fact that it's, as you said, kind of high geological potential with only really very few projects basically in the history of Nunavut, and then also, I mean, the fact that there's all of these projects that there might be potential for a new proponent coming in and further developing, or kind of is there something else that you kind of like to really highlight in terms of that potential into the future?
Yeah, and as I pointed out, there are two key aspects. The mineral potential is of course what nature has dealt us, and that makes anything else irrelevant if it's not there. So it is there. It's frontier type country, but unlike most of the world today, the regulatory regime has been thought out in modern times, and it's not I'm been really impressed by the Nunavut regulatory regime that it has. It's clear and seems to provide the type of interaction available with the proponents, and the proponents, I see where the proponents have responded to those public consultations and changed their ways to try to accommodate things. And so that I've done the research in recent months on the Northwest Territories and Yukon, where there are similar modern treaties, and they underwent devolution 20 years ago or so, and the regulatory system there seems to be breaking down. The agenda seems to have been hijacked by and I don't see that hijacking. I see that the looking at how NIRB are going through things, and I see a reasonable progression there. There's certainly the time delays, I think are more related to the volume and their capacity, and the capacity of proponents to put forth the proposals, make sure that they have their proposals done as well as they can for the professionals within the regulators to be able to go through them. So I think Nunavut has, so to answer it, I think the regulatory system is just as important as the mineral potential as a geologist, and so that's I think that that's a good takeaway. I think you're in that branch anyways, and so I would have said the same thing no matter who asked that.
Yeah, it's different depending on what teams and stuff like that, and of course, as you're well aware, permits fall under various ministries, actually mostly outside of NHN. So it's kind of a complicated web of regulatory systems. But yeah, thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
Hudson has it. Sorry, go ahead,
Yes.
Robert.
Yeah, no, and the one thing about mining is that it's become more complicated over the last 50 years. And I just shudder to think of how I operated when I was in the 1970s compared to how I would operate now.
Hudson has his hand up. Hudson, go ahead.
Hi, yeah. So I'm speaking from the Nunavut Chamber of Mines side, and I agree with the regulatory process and the mineral potential of Nunavut. My question is, if possible to answer, how would overcoming the infrastructure problem, is that solely based on the mine or the company that's doing the process to get things going, or is there a separate way to kind of support the infrastructure, such as roads or things like that, to access the minerals that are exciting the explorers?
Yeah, and so back in the 1970s, there was a federal Roads to Resources program that opened up roads in northern New Brunswick. It's still called the Road to Resources, and that type of program, you know, of course, the Alaska Highway was another type of government program that opened up infrastructure for that had a huge impact on the Yukon. And so that this Grays Bay infrastructure, the ability to go overland, you know, for this Chidliak diamond project and connect Nunavut to, or Iqaluit to the mine, you know, it makes such a big difference than using going by air. Air is you know, nice, but we now have more regulations for how helicopters can fly and fixed wing can fly, and fixed wing, of course, needs an airstrip of some sort, and so that I think having some the project proponents will, if they have to foot the bill, they're going to feel a sense of ownership to it. And I think that they need to not have that sense of ownership and control and liability that can all be written out in the agreements, the permitting agreements. Who pays? If it makes financial sense for several companies to get together on Grays Bay, that Grays Bay Road is also linked. You know, the link to Yellowknife is an all-season road between the border and Yellowknife is completely possible. And a lot of that land is Indigenous owned land in the eastern Northwest Territories, and so that my involvement I wasn't working on the Texas Gulf projects that were found, Isaac Lake and Hood River and Gondor, that would be opened up by the Grays Bay Road. We were looking at, you know, that's what killed it for us was getting the heavy product out at the end of the day. We looked at everything from using Zeppelins and yeah, it just didn't fly. And so that I think having some of these infrastructure done and having cooperation from it, you just can't stand back and say, oh, it has to be industry only, it has to be government only. there has to be lots of discussion and a champion for the project. And so we've seen where the champion keeps changing on the Grays Bay Road. But at least it's still moving forward. And the Grays Bay Road proponent has about $20 million of federal funding to help them see how that project can move forward. One of the other aspects that is in my Northwest Territories presentation on diamond mines is that they're reusing most of the rock that would be called waste for development of their underground kimberlite is being able to build roads to their next mining operation. And so that I think we have to look at these operations and what the engineers, the professionals are saying, this is where, this is what we should do. And the regulators don't necessarily adopt a no, you can't type attitude. They really ask all the questions to see what is the next best thing. And Baffinland are making it clear that when they started the project, it was supposed to work in stages, and that the first stage would be up to 6 million tons a year, going to 12 and going to 18. And I think that's something that when you're looking at 10 cents a kilogram for iron ore, even their high quality of their iron ore, the only economic answer for them is to move more tons. So I think that can be a win-win, and the best way to move lots of tonnage is by rail. So, but it made a huge difference for the Labrador Trough and the development of the iron mines in the Labrador Trough. So it's not like we haven't done it before in Canada. So I think regulators definitely should not rubber stamp, but we certainly need to, both on when proposals come through, to make sure that they have fully addressed community concerns and company concerns and the regulators' concerns.
Thank you, Bob, for the thorough presentation. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. We know time is precious, so thank you for sharing some of your time with us. Thanks for the engagement as well and the questions. This concludes our presentation for today. As Bob alluded to, that we have another session scheduled for next week, for Thursday, the 21st, on mining equals opportunities for the Northwest Territories, if you care to join us for that. So I will turn off the recording now and end the session. Thank you all again. Oh, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to remind, anybody can get in touch with Paul, and Paul can forward that on to me. Any questions can get forwarded on there. And to let you know, the Northwest Territories and Yukon are completely different presentations, because things are completely different there as well.
Yeah, very good. So I've listed my email address. You can also reach me through the edo.ca website, so I can pass along any questions or any information requests that you might have for Bob. So thank you all once again. Take care. Appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.